Hello and welcome to this village hall cook along with me, Jack Burke. I am a chef and food writer, and I've written a cookbook for Leon last year that came out I think in May, and I'm currently writing another one all about pasta. And the lovely people gave me the brief of, since it's St George's Day and it's your wellness weekend or wellness week, is there a healthy version of fish and chips? And I think there is. So we are going to make our own fish fingers. So I've got 6 pieces of cod that I've just chopped up into sort of fish fingery pieces, and then some flour, some eggs, and some breadcrumbs, which we're going to season. Hopefully you've all got the ingredients that I put up, and there's a method there. So if you're watching this afterwards, there will be like a printed A4 or 2 pieces of A4 detailing everything here and the method that I came up with. We're going to make our own tartar sauce. So I've got, just about 150 grams of mayonnaise, and we are going to put some shallots, a little bit of garlic, some capers, a few pickles, and some herbs in. I put tarragon on the recipe, but I couldn't actually find it, so I'm going to do some parsley and dill. The nice thing about this mayonnaise recipe is you can kind of just put whatever you've got in it. It's all going to taste pretty tasty. And then we're going to make sort of mushy peas. So we're going to cook some peas, fry off some garlics and shallots, mash it all together. I've actually got some ricotta in the fridge, which I think I'm going to put through. If not, just some butter and olive oil or creme fraiche or cream or whatever. But yeah, we're gonna do it slowly. Like once you get comfortable with this recipe, you can sort of do everything at the same time. But since we've got the time today, I'm going to do it step by step, and it should be easy for you to follow at home. In terms of equipment, I've got a very sharp knife, spatula, a little grater, pans, pots. I've got some boiling water on here that's simmering for the peas. But to be honest, none of this is specialist equipment. You can make do without having anything fancy like this. So we will start off by making the mayonnaise. Like I said, this is a standard Hellmann's mayonnaise from the shop, and we are going to flavour it with a little bit of grated garlic. If you don't have a grater like these are really great. They're called microplanes, and they get like a really fine, almost like a puree of garlic. If you don't have one of these, you can just chop it really finely with a knife, or put it in a food processor. But look, as you can see, I don't know if you can see that, it kind of comes out almost like a paste. So that it dissolves into the mayonnaise. Which is pretty cool. So we only need a tiny bit because it's grated. It's going to be very strong. If you don't like raw garlic, just don't put it in. Like I said, the great thing about this recipe is you can sort of add to it as you like. I forgot to mention that my laptop is broken, so I've dragged my girlfriend into the kitchen, and she's behind the camera holding it. So we've got pretty state-of-the-art gimbal that's hopefully keeping it quite steady. But what it means is that I can't see the chat with any questions that are coming in. Well, that's very kind. If there's a pause or something, Elle can have a look at the chat and sort of flick between it. But I will answer all your questions afterwards. I'll go back and have a look through it. So what else is going into tartar sauce is a shallot. These are good. These are banana shallots. And if you don't, the little ones you can get at the supermarket. Anything's fine. If you can't find these, again, doesn't really matter. Sort of just onions and the pickles will be fine. I don't know how good all your knife skills are, but I'll show you a really nice way to chop shallots. Just sort of make one incision there, and then make loads of lines like that. I'm going slowly, and then you cut across it, and you get a nice fine dice. Don't need much, probably not more than that. And the rest of this is going to go in the pan to make the peas. Those shallots go in. Touch of lemon juice. I like to add the lemon juice now because by squeezing it over the garlic, it kind of takes some of the rawness out of it. It's a good little tip I learned when making sort of your own pimped up mayonnaises. It's just leave the garlic to sit just for like a minute while you prepare the rest of the other ingredients with a bit of lemon juice and some salt, and that kind of just takes the harshness of the raw garlic away. While that's sitting there, we can just chop our herbs and our pickles. So like I said, the recipe called for tarragon, I couldn't find it. Tarragon and dill, I think I said in the recipe. So I'm going to use tarragon and parsley. Again, anything green that you've got in the fridge. Dill obviously goes really nicely with fish. And tarragon is one of my favourite herbs, and it's really nice in mayonnaises. So this doesn't have to be too fine. Just sort of run the knife through the dill. Don't leave much. It's a very overpowering herb. So I'd say that's probably a tablespoon of chopped dill. So that goes in as well. If I'm going too fast for anybody, I'm sorry. But like I said, this is being recorded and it's going to be posted on the Facebook page afterwards. So if you miss anything or you want to do it again, just check it out there. Same thing with a little bit of parsley. Just run your knife through it. It doesn't have to be super fine. It's quite nice to sort of see what's in the mayonnaise. And the reason I'm making this first before anything else is because ideally you'd make this maybe the night before or at least a couple of hours in advance and leave it in the fridge to sit because sort of everything sort of absorbs into the mayonnaise and it kind of infuses. But we didn't have time for that. But I'm going to make it first and put it in the fridge. And then just a few twists of black pepper. Always freshly ground, don't bother with the ground stuff. It loses something like 90% of its smell and taste 10 minutes after being ground. So I always use a freshly ground pepper. And then just take a fork or a spoon or even a little mini whisk. Give it a mix and then remember that you've forgotten to add 2 other ingredients. Doesn't matter. Just a few cornichons or pickles. If you've got just sort of like standard burger pickles, those would be nice as well. We're going to just give those quick dice. And this is quite nice. This is sort of the classic taste of tartar sauce comes from these 2 ingredients, the capers and the gherkins.
Somebody said that they didn't like capers. Would you go to?
Yeah, don't put them in. Very simple. They are nice capers, but I understand that they can be very salty and vinegary, but you know, that's the beauty of them. I've got capers in vinegar. You can get them in, mine are in salted water, so they're in brine. The really good capers from Italy come sort of in salt, like dry packed with salt. That's the highest quality ones, and when you use those, you want to give them a little rinse to get all that dried salt off, but they taste amazing. So just run your knife through the gherkins. Again, that's probably half a tablespoon. Just eyeball it. If you like one or more of these ingredients a little bit more, you know, add more of it. This isn't you know, I wrote the recipe down just so people could have something to follow, but I've never followed a recipe or something like this. You kind of just add what you like the taste of, and the more you make these things, the more comfortable you'll get with, you know, experimenting. And in our flat, we make every meal better by making this sort of souped up mayonnaise. It's such an easy way to make a delicious sauce, and it's so much better than anything you can buy in the shop. Finally, the optional capers, so I'm just chopping them into a paste and adding those as well. One last mix, and sort of that's the, I mean, sort of starting to look a little bit like tartar sauce, isn't it? If you want to make this in batches, you can make, you know, just double, quadruple this even. It'll keep for about 3 days in the fridge if you put it in an airtight container. Just give it a little taste. And just think what it needs. It definitely needs some more lemon juice. Just another little squeeze. And it probably needs a touch of salt, even though the capers are very salty. Maybe one more bit of lemon juice. It's always best to add in little increments because you can always add, but you can never take it away. And as many times when I've chucked a load of salt in or squeezed loads of lemon juice and tasted it, and I've ruined the whole thing. So that's the tartar sauce made. Really nice and fresh herbs, fresh shallots, bit of garlic, capers and gherkins. And we're just going to leave that uncovered because we're only leaving it for a little bit in the fridge. Like I said, if you want to make this in advance, it's going to taste even better. So I'm going to just leave that in the fridge while we get on with the rest of it. We will bread our fish next, so I'm just going to tidy up slightly. Are there any questions, though? Anyone's got any questions?
No, they're the same. Hello.
Great. What a audience. So, if we come over here, sorry about the tiny kitchen, but hopefully we'll be able to make do. What we've got here is like a fish finger breading station. You can use any white fish. I've got cod. You can use frozen fish if you defrost it. Haddock, plaice, any things like that. And this is just basically how you bread anything. The really cool thing about this is that it works with chicken, it works with pork. And once you sort of get familiar with making breaded meats and fish, you're in for a real treat because they taste so much better. Sorry, I'm just going to fork.
Do you have a good veggie alternative for the fish?
To be honest, no. You could fry anything. You could bread like vegetables and sort of do like a fritto misto, which they have in Italy. But that's more of a deep fried thing. I've never actually made breaded vegetables. I'd love to know if you have any suggestions and if you've tried any. But in terms of veggie, I mean, this tartar sauce is really nice with just chips. These peas are incredible. So yeah, in terms of veggie, I would just sort of make some really nice homemade chips and have that with the tartar sauce. I have never, to be honest with you, breaded vegetable things. So what I'm doing here is I've cracked 2 eggs. I probably don't need 2, but I want to get rid of them. I'm going to just give them a really light beating with a fork. We are going to then season the breadcrumbs with some lemon zest. So it goes, you get your fish, you dip it in the flour to dry it off, dip it in egg, dip it in the breadcrumbs, and it's that simple. So I'm going to just grate some lemon zest into the breadcrumbs. And again, you can play around. This is where you can really experiment. You can add any flavorings you like to the breadcrumbs. So I've put oregano and smoked paprika, but you can add literally anything you want. You can add some chili in here if you like them spicy. I'm using lemon zest rather than juice because I want to keep the breadcrumbs dry, obviously, otherwise they won't go crispy. So that's about the zest of a lemon. Quick note on the lemons. These are unwaxed lemons. They're a little bit more expensive and harder to find, but most lemons you will get in the supermarket will have a very thin coating of wax over them, which is to keep them fresh. But if you're grating, obviously if you're zesting them, you're going to get a little wax in your food. To take that off, just rinse it under really hot water and give it sort of a light scrub with a sponge, and that should remove most of the wax. Then I'm adding some salt. I'm also going to add some salt to the flour because this is our only chance to season the fish. If we dip it in the seasoned flour, obviously it's going to taste a lot nicer. So just a little bit of salt, some pepper, just to eye really. I've put the measurements on the recipe if you do want to follow it. But like I said, it's one of those things you sort of just eyeball. The more you make it, the more you get familiar with how much you need. Then some oregano. Again, probably about a teaspoon, but about that much. These you can make in advance. These fish fingers, they freeze really well. They keep in the fridge for a day or 2. Yeah. Sometimes I like to make loads of them and just freeze them, and then we can have them whenever we're hungry on a weeknight. And then some smoked paprika. I really like smoked paprika. It's quite overpowering, but I'm going to add probably a little bit more than most of you would want, because I am going to eat this afterwards. And then, again, using a fork or your hands, just mix the flour together with the salt. And then the breadcrumbs. In fact, I might need a few more breadcrumbs. I'm going to just grab them from the cupboard very quickly. It's better to have too many because it's really annoying if you get to the sort of 5th fish finger and there's just not enough left. You can use something. You can get a really good pre-made, pre-flavored, I should say, breadcrumbs from the supermarket, like lemon and black pepper ones. I'm going just for the plain ones so I can show you all how to flavour them. But if you see a flavour you like, grab them by all means and save yourself. They're not that much more expensive. Okay, so now for the assembly and the messy bits. So I'm going to just drop all my fish in the flour. And then let me just get a cloth. So roll it all around in the flour, in the seasoned flour, making sure you coat all the ends. Do that with each of them. So you just sort of pat it in, give it a little shake off. And this is to help the egg stick to the fish fillets. Because if you just chuck this sort of slimy, fresh fish in, the egg would just slip off and the breading wouldn't hold. And again, if anyone's just joining us, this is all going to be recorded and released on the Facebook page. The whole video is going to be up there, so if you want to watch it again or you missed some of the beginning bits, you'll find it there, along with the written recipe that I've written down, which is what you do with them. So once all your fish is evenly coated, let's swap these around. A little mix. Now, keeping one hand dry and one hand wet, so everything doesn't stick together. You're just going to drop them in, making sure you get egg over all of the fish. Sorry, that hand's in the way. Just shake off the excess, chuck it in, and then just drop your breadcrumbs over the fillets. Don't shake too many off, and then repeat. Sorry. So really simple. Like I said, this is a really versatile technique that you can use to bread. It works really well with chicken. Yeah, you can play around with it. And if you want to make more in advance, they keep really well in the freezer and the fridge. So, as you can see, it all starts to get a little bit claggy if you're not careful. But we will get there. Don't worry if it sort of clumps up a little bit. That will actually be really nice and crispy once you start frying it.
Is there anything else you can use instead of egg?
You can use vegan egg mixtures. I know that they're more common now. Not more common, but more readily available. There'll be sort of vegan beaten egg alternatives. I can't think of any brand names off the top of my head, but when I was working at Leon, they used those a lot. So I know they exist, and I know they're quite easy to find.
Maybe the chia seeds.
Yeah, some people use sort of wet, like soaked chia seeds.
Yeah,
Sorry, I don't know if you can be heard, Elle, on the microphone. My girlfriend was just saying that some people use, is it soaked chia seeds?
Yeah, you soak them.
You soak chia seeds and they kind of simulate the texture of eggs. So yeah, I'd love to know if anyone does have any vegan or vegetarian. Are the eggs vegetarian? Don't know. They are vegetarian. Any vegan egg alternatives? But you do need this something to coat them. And egg is the best and most traditional. Obviously, using free-range organic eggs where you can. I've been to egg farms. When I was filming for Leon, they sent me to work on all the farms and producers that they got their supplies from, and yeah, the difference in animal welfare at the free-range and organic places was worlds apart. So the price difference isn't too much, and I would really encourage you to shop organic and free-range wherever you can. Obviously, if you can't, it's fine. But I've been to both ends of the spectrum, and one's a hell of a lot nicer than the other. So final one, just give it a little coat. As you can see, I've made too many breadcrumbs. These, as long as you're not breading raw chicken, in which case I'd say throw this away. But you can probably hold on to these if they just touch fish, and save them for if you're going to make these again. So there we go. We've got 6 fish fingers. You can see all of the herbs. Any bits that you think look a bit naked, just give them a touch up. And again, these are best made a little bit further in advance because I'm going to put them in the fridge with the tartar sauce, just to sort of firm up a little bit. So when they fry, they don't completely fall apart, but they'll be fine even if you chuck them in now. everything will stick quite nicely. So I'm going to just wash my hands to get all this gunk off. If you wanted to use gloves, that's probably advisable, but not woolen gloves, obviously, but they're little rubber gloves. I'm going to just put this over here, out of the way. I'm going to chuck these. Great. So these are going to go in the fridge, and we're gonna get on with the next step. There's no space in this fridge, obviously. Cool. Just give a quick wipe down. And like I said, I'm doing this all sort of slowly, step by step. But once if you've made this recipe and you like it and you want to make it again, by all means, sort of do everything at once. But I'm going to just do it nice and slowly for the benefit of everyone at home. Okay. Next, we're going to do the the mushy peas. So we're going to fry. Basically, we're going to blanch the peas for a couple of minutes just to soften them in the boiling water. Fry off some garlic and shallots in the pan. Add it all together, and then mush them. And add butter, lemon juice, and some fresh herbs. And I promise you, they are so tasty. So again, I'm just using the rest of the shallot, finely dicing it. If you don't have shallots, white onion would be great. Yeah, any kind of, or even spring onion would be really nice. Any kind of allium, along with some garlic. But again, this is one of those recipes that's really not, doesn't have to be followed religiously. You can sort of just play around with it. So again, just slicing in. If you imagine it, we've kind of made like a cross section. So we've done cuts like that. And then when we run our knife this way, it just falls apart. It's a perfect dice. If your dice is a bit big, you can sort of just run your knife through like that. You know, if your knife skills aren't quite there yet, just take your time. They come with practice. Mine were rubbish once. And again, sort of just eyeball it. That's probably going to be enough for what we need. I always like to start onions and garlic off in a cold pan, because it kind of infuses the oil, which is olive oil that we're going to fry them in, with the flavour as they come up to temperature, and it means they don't burn as soon as you put them in. This is one of the best things I have in the kitchen, by the way. It's just a bread divider, but because it's flexible, it's so useful. It literally puts everything above the chopping board. So I'd highly recommend one of these. They're about £2. Then the garlic, I like it quite chunky. I love garlic. This is probably a lot more than many of you would want to put in, but I've got 4 cloves. I think I've put 2 on the recipe, but yeah, you could even grate it using that. But I quite like being able to taste all the cloves. So again, just finely slice it. Doesn't have to be exact. It's all quite rustic. It's going to get all mashed up once we start cooking them. So nice and roughly chop them. And if you don't have a pan of boiling water on yet, sorry, I haven't given you much notice, but I've had one just on the back burner, so we didn't have to watch water boil for 5 minutes. But I'm just going to bring that back up to temperature now. So just slice through, like I said, really roughly, doesn't matter. Again, this looks like an obscene amount of garlic, but I love garlic. What can I say? Feel free to, adjust this recipe as you want at home, but I've added 4 cloves just now. Okay. Another little good thing with when you're cooking garlic is just to add a tiny bit of salt. I've been told it stops it browning too quickly. Don't know if that's true, but it seems to work, so I'm not gonna mess with that. So I've got about 200 grams of frozen peas here. They've only been in the freezer rather, for 10-15 minutes, and we're going to just chuck those in the boiling water, it's going to instantly drop. So you probably need about 3 minutes like that while we just fry off over medium-high heat. The onions, the garlic and onion. Any questions, Al, from anybody? Nobody. They're probably all cooking. Just put my things away. So I've got just left over from something we ate the other day, a bit of ricotta, which I'm going to stir through the peas to give it a real richness. If you've got double creamer in the fridge, use that. If you want to be healthy, don't use anything. Just a bit of butter and extra muscle when mashing will be good. Creme fraiche is really nice. But yeah, I'm all about just sort of making use of what you've got in the cupboards, and that's one of the beauties of cooking at home, is that you get really good at making use of what you've already got in the fridge, rather than having to go out and spend £15 on an exact shopping list that someone's come up with. You know, like I said, any recipe that I write is very loose and designed to be modified depending on the circumstances. I'm just adding some pepper now because I kind of like the toastiness of pepper if you fry it. The chef Mario Batali was always very passionate about adding ingredients at various and getting them at various stages of cooking. So if you have like fennel, taste the fennel raw, to taste the fennel cooked, to taste the fennel like really cooked. And it's kind of the same with pepper. Like toasted pepper is going to taste different to pepper added right at the end. So yeah, it's all about maximising flavour. As you can see, these are sort of cooking really gently because we started them in a cold pan. You haven't just chucked them in and they've gone brown instantly. They've come up to temperature with the oil. So you basically get an infused oil and everything very gently cooked. You don't want your garlic to go any further than light golden, otherwise it'll go bitter. We can just leave that there. Give your peas a little stir. This is actually probably too much for the amount of people we've got, but it doesn't really matter. It's all about making use of what there is. Again, this is a recipe that can be quadrupled, quintupled, septupled in size as far as I can go. I don't know the next one. Octupled. Anyone? I don't know. And it freezes well, keeps in the fridge for a couple of days. You can reheat it. Obviously, normally we'd have the fish fingers going on at the same time. In fact, I'm gonna get another pan and bring it up so you guys don't have to watch. So again, non-stick frying pan. I am going to fry in rapeseed oil. You can use olive oil, but it's quite overpowering, and everyone always says that you shouldn't fry things in olive oil because it's I don't know, a little unhealthy, and the smoke point's too high, not high enough. To be honest with you, I love frying in olive oil. It tastes delicious to me, but I've got rapeseed in it, and it is, when you're frying something on a high temperature, it does smoke less, which is good. So this is about where I want it, really. You can take it further, you can make it a bit more golden, but I really like being able to taste the garlic. So I'm going to take that off heat now. The peas are warmed through. So I'm just going to drain these. You all know how to drain peas. If you didn't want to blanch them first, you could just you could fry the frozen peas off with the onions and the garlic, but I think it makes it easier to mash by blanching them first. And then we're just going to add the onions and garlics to the peas. Give it a mix around. Put that in the sink.
Someone says they like peas when they're mushy, they can't believe they take on a completely different flavour.
See, I wouldn't even call these mushy. I think I could refer to them as smashed peas, but they're not that horrible sort of like baby food texture that you get with fish and chip mushy peas. They're like a They're almost like like a really chunky mashed potato. They're amazing. So just mix that all together. And if you've got a potato masher, which I think I do, yes I do. Add a little bit of butter. And we can just keep these warm while we fry the fish. It won't take long, a couple of minutes on each side, 3 minutes on each side. Add the butter, keep on a really low heat. Give that all a mix. Now time to add some herbs. Again, whatever you've got to hand. I love dill with this. Don't worry about the stalks when they're this tender. Generally, the herbs that you get in supermarkets in those little plastic packets, the stalks are fine to eat. But I'll just show you guys quickly. If you buy it from a greengrocer's and you get it like that as a bunch, these will, but you don't really want this as a garnish. But these are delicious fried off. Don't waste them. They are full of flavour. So really rough chop. Add that in. And we'll pause what we're doing here. Basically, we're going to mash salt, herbs, and anything you want to add, but just while we get our fish going. Like I said, once you get comfortable with this recipe, you can sort of do everything at once, like your spinning plates, but I thought I'd slow it down. Just to test that the oil's hot enough, just get a breadcrumb, drop it in. See, it's not quite there yet, it's not really bubbling how I want it to. It's probably got another 30 seconds to heat up. So we can go back to our peas. Turn the heat up so the butter melts. If you don't want to use butter, this could be vegan if you just use olive oil. This pea recipe. Obviously it's vegetarian, but if you wanted to make this vegan, just use olive oil. Yeah, so our pan's hot enough now. So just keep an eye on the heat, back it off slightly, and then laying the fish away from you, if you come over, just want to lightly cook these. My pan's quite small, so I think I'm just going to cook. Don't want to overcrowd it out, we have to get it in actually. If you're making for a family and you want, you can have multiple pans going at once, or put the oven on warmer, and once you cook them, do them in batches and just keep them warm in the oven. 1 second out. But very important is to get a bit of kitchen roll to drain these off on, because they're going to come out with a lot of oil on them. So just on the plate. Yeah, and yeah, you don't want the heat too high here, because otherwise they'll go brown before they're cooked in the middle. Just keep an eye on them. Tilt the pan around like this. Sort of, you just want to keep the oil moving so it gets everywhere. Give it a little shake to make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom. But the trick is to cook them gently, and using a spatula, just keep an eye on them. Go back to our peas. So I've got a masher here. Turn the heat off. And we just want to mash them as much as you want, really. If you want them chunkier, leave them chunkier. If you want them, you could even chuck these in a food processor and blitz it if you want them a bit finer. But I quite like the texture of them being a bit, some whole peas, some mushed peas. Add the rest of our herbs. I've got some fresh mint. Turn it down slightly. Again, really roughly chopped. Doesn't have to be too fine. Then just run it through the other way. And a bit of parsley since we've got it. Check on our fish actually first. No, still a bit longer, we're good. Okay. Technical issues. Can you come back? Hold on. Sorry, everybody. Hold it. There you go. You're good. It's crazy when that happens, isn't it? Sorry if anyone's just thrown up watching that. It was like being probably one of those horrible fun fair rides. Just a little bit of parsley. And you know what? Some lemon zest. Again, this is all about just playing with the flavours. Add whatever you want. Dried herbs would work nicely in here too. Keep that mix. That's what they're starting to look like. Once we add the ricotta or the creme fraiche or the cream whatever, they're going to start to get even more sort of syrupy and mushy. But even if you wanted to serve them like that, as like a sort of smashed paste, delicious. Have a look at the fish. So yeah, there you go. Looking nice and golden. Careful of the oil, it is bloody hot. This is great. This is a fish spatula, and it's super it's super flexible, and it gets really right under the fish. It's great. They're about £20, and you can get them on most good tasting websites. But yeah, just careful because when you flip it, it's gonna sort of flame up a little bit. If you notice the pan getting a little dry, and a little, just add a bit more oil. Just give it a move around so it sort of gets to all the bits. Okay, gonna add some ricotta now. Really not much. It's just gonna be. It's gonna change the whole texture. Mix that in. I've got the heat off just so nothing burns, and turn it on very gently just so that ricotta melts. A really nice way to make this even tastier. It's not as healthy, but if you fry some bacon or some pancetta, pancetta and peas go so well together. And you can see already it's like turning into a much more familiar texture. It sort of just binds it all together. Lemon mash. We will taste this seasoning in a second, but for now we can just keep mashing it. Keep an eye on your fish. It always cooks faster on the second side because it's already hot. So be aware of that. It's probably going to need slightly less time. Sort of just get those sides. If it's a bit thinner, you probably won't need to do the sides, but mine are quite chunky. And kind of when you're frying things and sort of the pan's wider than your flame, I haven't done it, but it's a good idea to sort of rotate the pan like that so that it gets all the fillets get even heat. Or there you go. Or just sort of move them around the pan. Those probably don't need much longer. So let's taste the peas. Yeah. So then loads of lemon juice. Probably what's that, quarter of a lemon. Squeeze that through. So tasty. When I tested this recipe I used creme fraiche, but the ricotta's giving it a run for its money. With some salt. Turn the heat off probably now. And some fresh pepper. give that one last mix. And then we can just keep that warm with the lid while we go back to our fish. Get that final side if they're thick enough. Be careful to spray back. You can see they're really nice and golden brown. Cool. And just give a little tidy jet while you're going. It's always nice to get so you don't leave yourself a mountain of dishes to do afterwards. And those are done. Different experience. You can see you can feel that they've really firmed up. And it's about 3 or 4 minutes per side. So very important. We'll just drain them, turn the heat off, and we'll just take them over to a paper towel lined plate, or if you've got a sort of a wire rack, you can cool them on there, because you can already see all that oil that's coming out. You don't want to be too greasy. So there you go. What I like to do now is just while they're hot and the oil's still there, let's just give them a little touch of flaky sea salt. And that's really sort of going to stick to the outside of the fish fingers. A bit of pepper. And we'll just leave those to cool down for a minute while we plate up. So this is probably enough for 2. I'm going to just plate up 1 portion to show everybody, and then I'm going to eat the rest when I've got some space. If you just give me 1 second, let's just transfer this here so I can use this plate. Okay. So, got our peas. Get that out of the way for everybody. So, like I said, these aren't really anything like mushy peas that you get in a chip shop. They're like a sort of, I don't know, how would you describe them, Al? Like a pea smash or something. They're not really mushy peas. They are delicious. And then we'll just get 3 fish fingers. Sorry, I keep getting in your way. And then the tartar sauce, which by now will have sort of really infused nicely. It's cooled down, nothing more mayo. And yeah, here you go. We sort of serve that as a dipping sauce on the side. They're also really nice with ketchup. But there you go. That is homemade fish fingers with a mint, dill, garlic, shallots, and ricotta, mashed peas, homemade tartar sauce, and some lemon zest, lemon juice even. Just give that a little squeeze over. They're going to be roasting hot still. So while those cool down, are there any final questions?
Not at the moment, but if anyone.
Yeah, you can hit me up on Instagram if you want. It's at JSBurke, Burke. I've answered any questions. The recipe has been written up and it's going to be posted alongside this video in its full length on the Facebook page. But happy St. George's Day. Thank you for joining us. And hopefully see you again soon.